Next, we've got Shama Lee, founder of Sunfed, who's creating a plant-based meat products. Now, we've got a surprise for you today. At lunchtime, we are serving Shama's Sunfed chicken-free chicken. So all the meat lovers and vegetarians out there, you gotta try it for yourself. But for now, please help me welcome Shama.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited and happy to be here in the company of you wonderful seekers, searching to be your best and in turn, helping to build a better world. To me, that's what the entrepreneurial journey is all about. Whether we're conscious of it or not, it's another manifestation of the timeless human seeking to know what this brief life is all about. And through that creative process of building a company in that high pressure cooker intensive environment of being faced with one challenge after another at an accelerated pace, you come face to face with your own limitations, of all the things that are holding you back, of how you are standing in your own way. And you have to learn to break through those limitations to keep growing. To me, it continues to be that journey. I did a TED Talk a couple of years ago, and I titled it, Engineering My Struggle, a First World Problem. I use the word struggle purposefully because struggle is real when you're building something out of nothing. And struggle can be a beautiful thing. It doesn't need to be a negative. Struggle to me is a useful part of the entrepreneurial process. And the more struggles you face, the better you get. You have to lean into the struggle, lean into the challenge. Know that you're better off embracing the struggle and rising to the challenge instead of running away from it. A comfortable, complacent life is a life not well lived. Adventure is in the struggle. Innovation is the result of the struggle. You don't have to take my word for it. Let's look at how things work in reality. Let's look at nature. In fact, let's look at the innovation process of nature, of how it uses struggle to improve design and propel life forward. The process of evolution. As you know, evolution is a fact of our existence. It is the process by which life evolved from simple to complex forms, with human beings the most complex form on this planet. I said complex, not smart. We are 3.5 billion years in the making, the pinnacle of evolution on this planet. The fantastic innovations that have happened through these billions of years of natural evolutionary process dwarf everything we human beings think we have accomplished. Take the wing, for instance. The sophistication and elegance of the engineering in a bird's wing makes an airplane wing look like a crude historical artifact. There are numerous such examples, the opposable thumb and the brain being probably the two we're most familiar with, though we probably use the thumb more than the brain, with all the texting and tweeting. So given that nature does innovation far better than we can, it should be our best teacher. So let's break down how evolution works in a simple way. Fundamentally, there are three key things. A novel design or trait resulting from random recombination or mutation in the genome. That novel trait offers an advantage in the current environment, and that novel trait is hereditary. So through random genetic variation, if organisms develop a unique trait that gives them an advantage, so enables them to better live in the current environment, and that trait is hereditary, that is, it is able to pass that trait onto its offspring, then that becomes an innovation that can propel those organisms forward. This is accelerated if that organism population is facing a struggle. And organisms with the novel trait become more likely to survive, hence are more likely to reproduce and pass on those genes. And over time, that trait naturally gets selected for. A simple but revolutionary theory of natural selection by Charles Darwin, a grounding scientific fact backed by enormous evidence all the way to genome and DNA evidence today. A great example of evolution in nature is the majestic giraffe. The towering neck of a giraffe is considered an engineering marvel. The leading theory is that, and I'm greatly simplifying things here, slightly longer necks happen through random variation in the ancestors of giraffes, which gave them an advantage over others to survive better, especially during harsh conditions like drought, which meant they were the ones most likely to reproduce, and the trait gradually amplified in the population over a very long period of time. Right, so how does this apply to entrepreneurship? Well, this is how I see it. The human-created marketplace has the same three fundamental principles of natural evolution, except in fast forward at an accelerated pace. The recombination and mutation process is your deep R&D phase that results in a unique design or trait which forms your unique product. The current marketplace is the consumer needs and wants in the marketplace, and your advantage is the value add the consumer sees in your product. And hereditary or reproduction equates to replication and scalability. There is no longer natural selection in this environment. Instead, the equivalent is human selection. Consumers voting with their wallet. Essentially, the human ability to make a choice. So let's take my startup Sunfed as a tangible example of this process. The only true and useful thing I can share with you today is my experience with Sunfed. So let's take a look with that evolution mechanics in mind. So, Sunfed is a regenerative protein company, and we started with deep R&D with huge unknowns. That R&D eventually resulted in some novel traits or unique breakthroughs. Off the back of those breakthroughs, we created our first product, Sunfed chicken-free chicken. So this was step one of the process. Step two was then to test whether the novel trait or unique product suited the current marketplace and offered an advantage or value add to the consumer. Now, you can have a fantastic product, but the current marketplace may not be ready for it. Consumers may not see the value in it. So timing is extremely important. So many great minds created amazing things, but the world was just not ready for those things. They were literally ahead of their time. The first electric car was built in 1828. The first solar cell was built in 1839, but the timing was not on their side. The world didn't have the awareness or the momentum back then that it has today on renewable energy, so these products were not seen as being advantages or adding value. For Sunfed, I started it in 2015, and by 2017, we were ready to test our product. So what investors call product validation. Is the market ready for it? Are consumers going to see a value add in this product, and hence will be willing to choose it? I went to the two largest supermarket chains in New Zealand and convinced them that they should launch Sunfed chicken-free chicken together. Now, this was back in 2017, and there wasn't as much awareness as we have now about meat alternatives. On top of that, chicken-free chicken is very different from your typical meat alternative. So no one was sure how the market would respond to it. So it's a bit of a trial back then. So the launch took everyone by surprise. So many of you may know it sold out first day of launch. It kept selling out. Our launch video went viral with 12 million views. That's more than the population of New Zealand. The New Zealand poultry industry came after us, which gave us tons of media, which is fantastic. And we just couldn't keep up with the demand, which is the best validation you can get. So timing was right, and the product offered value. That's important. Your product does need to offer an advantage, a value add to the consumer. Far more unique traits happen in nature that are just not useful. So never get selected for. It's only the ones that offer an advantage at the time that go anywhere. That's why it's important to be ruthlessly solutions focused. For us at Sunfed, there were 3 key product traits that we were focused on, and we were not going to compromise on that. The meaty experience, health, and convenience. It was clear to us right from the beginning that people enjoyed the meaty experience, right? Because meat tastes fucking delicious. And people really enjoy that. And there was no way we were going to change the world by creating a wonderfully healthy product that tasted like tofu. That was not the solution. So at this given point in time that we're alive in, the best solution is to give people what they're looking for in meat, and that includes that meaty experience. What else were people looking for in meat? I noted that in Western markets, meat consumption is actually going down, except for chicken. Chicken is the only meat that is growing, and growing fast. And this growth in chicken is despite the awareness of the big problems with chicken intensification. So factory farms, to antibiotics usage, to soy feeds, to flu outbreaks, etc., etc. So why was chicken consumption still going up? I realized that people were moving away from all other meats, such as red meat, and substituting with chicken, because they were choosing the lesser of the evil. In their mind, from all the meat options they had in front of them, chicken comparatively was the healthiest and the easiest to use. So that then begs the question, what would happen if you threw in another choice in that mix? A better choice. That was our goal with Chicken Free Chicken, to make a better chicken. So during our R&D, our focus was to create a meaty structure from plant proteins and only use a minimal set of super clean ingredients, so mainly water and premium yellow pea protein. This turned out to be very difficult, and it didn't look like we could achieve it for a while. We had thousands and thousands of trials and iterations that didn't work. Eventually, though, we had some interesting breakthroughs that led us to build our own hardware, among other proprietary processes, to achieve that. So we finally were able to create a world-first unique product that cooks, feels, and tastes like animal chicken with a very strong nutritional profile. So among other things, it has double the protein of chicken, triple the iron of beef, no cholesterol, no trans fats, no salmonella, and you just sub it for chicken in your existing recipe. So we wanted to keep it really easy. So in all these ways, we wanted to make that better chicken. And it will keep getting better as we continuously iterate, which you cannot do with an animal. It's important to always aim to make your product better than the status quo, so it offers people real value. That's when you actually create a new possibility, a new choice. That's where the magic happens. And once you have created that choice, you need to scale that choice and bring it to as many people as possible. And that's when you disrupt. Which meant we had to prove the last point of that evolutionary process, which was to show it's hereditary, so reproducible and scalable. Turned out to be very difficult. If you want to build a global company that can disrupt existing norms and propel the world forward, you can't do that without scale. So to showcase that scalability, we picked a much bigger market than New Zealand, Australia. Now, what does scale mean here? For Sunfed, it meant that we had to replicate the product consistently, so show manufacturability, and we had to do that at scale, so essentially make a lot at once. Something can be manufacturable but not scalable, like building Ferraris. That's why Ferraris are limited and very expensive. To disrupt a big market, you need scalability. You need that huge economies of scale that currently animal meat has. That's what Henry Ford did. His huge contribution to mankind was engineering the mass production of cars, which completely disrupted transport and propelled the world forward. Now, this scalability point is not so much an issue with software, which is one of the reasons why software is inherently an easier and attractive proposition than hardware. Bespoke hardware combined with manufacturing, so building real-world things and scaling that up, is a different ballgame altogether. So that's what we had to showcase, that Sunfed tech and products had both manufacturability, so replication, and scalability. But to me, it was more than just showing replication at scale. So if we go back again and look at nature, the reproductive mechanism of cells replicating can go in two directions. The first is your healthy replication, which continuously happens in our bodies. Old cells are replaced by new cells all the time through and reproduction, which is a regenerative process. The second is unhealthy replication, such as a cancerous tumor, which is unsustainable growth as it ends up killing its host. The same applies to market systems. So it's very important to also apply a conscious lens to how you scale. Otherwise, instead of solving the problem, you can just become another version of it. So taking Sunfed as an example, we are focused on solving the problems directly caused by animal meat production. The fundamental flaw with the animal system is that it can't scale without damage. As soon as you start to scale it up, it turns into an unhealthy negative system where it takes more inputs than it gives out. So it feeds off its environment and depletes it. Animal systems take a lot, from growing the vast amounts of food and water it takes to feed billions of animals, to controlling all the waste produced, to all the pharmaceuticals needed to keep them alive in large, unnatural, intensive environments, and it causes large-scale pollution to our fundamental resources of soil, water, and air. It is now the biggest emitter of greenhouse gases, the largest polluter of waterways, and the key reason for the deforestation of the Amazon. It's a negative system, which multiplies depletion and damage. That's the very definition of unsustainable. So, with Sunfed, it was critical for us to flip this on its head and be a positive system. This would be the best kind of system to scale out, as it will enrich its environment and not deplete it. It will leave things better than it found it. And the more it scales, the better things should get. In other words, a healthy, regenerative system. And that's the key reason we chose pulses like yellow peas from the get-go. Not only are they protein powerhouses, which means very efficient protein yield, so you need less land, they're also the most environmentally sustainable crops you can grow, which is why the United Nations declared 2016 the year of pulses. Pulses are amazing. They enrich soil fertility, leaving it better than they found it. They're nitrogen fixers, so don't require fertilizer, which is one of the key polluters of our waterways here. They have minimal water footprint with the ability to be drought resistant, and they're hardy crops, minimizing pesticide use. So imagine seeing fields of yellow peas and knowing that they're enriching the soil and not polluting the waterways or killing the bees. World peas. So, Sunfed's foundation has been built with the ability to scale and feed the world and still be regenerative. And while this was important to us because we truly want to build a real solution, it actually has now become a huge competitive advantage. Consumers see value in sustainable products and are willing to choose it over unsustainable products, even if it costs more. I mean, look at Tesla. So we scaled, which has been a challenging manufacturing project of setting up a new plant here in Auckland. And recently launched in Australia, nationwide, to big success. And are now focused on our global expansion. So at Sunfed, my team is driven by things bigger than themselves. We are all acutely aware of what animal protein is doing to both human and planet health, and the possibilities it is taking away from future generations. That is our struggle. But we know that even with this awareness, meat consumption won't just stop like that, because we understand human beings. We understand why they eat meat, and we are relentlessly focused on empowering them with new choices for their protein that meets their needs even better than animal meat. And we want to bring that choice to everyone, because that is the fastest solution out of this problem. As we saw earlier, natural selection no longer applies in this world that human beings have designed and built. Instead, we human beings are the selection engine. But this is a double-edged sword. Because if we collectively don't make good decisions, we start de-evolving. And this de-evolution is what is currently largely happening. Instead of propelling life forward, we are exploiting everything, from soil to the water, to the trees, to the animals, to human beings. So this is where you all come in. Like it or not, the market economy is currently the biggest force we have at our disposal that can shift human behavior rapidly. If, as entrepreneurs and business leaders, we all strive to consciously create new choices for human beings in that marketplace, that will leave the world better than we found it, and make it easy for consumers to make those choices, then together we have increased the likelihood of a better future. This is conscious evolution. Thank you.